and San. I'm the Regional Vice President for our creator products for the EMEA region. And I'm joined today by Julia and Adrian. Before we kick off, there is a QR code on the screen, which is connected to Slido. So if there's any questions that you'd like me to ask our two guests here, please feel free to scan ahead and type the question in. We've got some questions that I'm going to ask them beforehand, but we'll try to get them in the end, if possible. And to get us kick-started, I think it would be great for the two of you to introduce yourselves. So, Adrian, as you're sitting next to me, do you please mind giving everyone an introduction as to what you do on a day-to-day basis? And also, given that the conversation today is going to be about compensation and negotiation, it would be great to sort of understand, for the time that you've been in the field, how has this topic evolved?
Well, hello, I'm Adrian, and I'm a content creator, music content creator specifically. So I create compositions and motion graphics that explain how music and sound work. I've been doing this full-time for the past 3 years. And in terms of compensation, when I started my career, it used to be very varied. I got all sorts of different offers, different ways of being compensated. These days, flat fees and affiliate links are more of the norm, and gifting becomes less and less feasible. In some cases, previous partnerships that started off as gifting have evolved into other paid opportunities. So that's how it has evolved with the partners as well.
Amazing. No, thanks for that insight along with your introduction as well. So over to you, Julia. Please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Julia. I've been working with creators for around 8 years. I'm in part of the industry for 5 years now. And for the past couple of months, I moved to the agency side. So I had the brand perspective and the agency to chime on. And I think the biggest change around compensation was understanding that this is a full-time job for creators. You know, it's not like, oh, you already do this. Can you just please add this link? It's not going to cost you anything. And yeah, I think that's the biggest change.
Awesome. No, thank you very much for that. And let's dive straight in then, shall we? So first question, what I really want to understand from both of your standpoint, naturally representing the creator standpoint, Adrian and Julia, from your standpoint, brands, agencies, sort of the advertiser side, what sort of aspects do you take into account when it comes to piecing together that negotiation, that pricing strategy? How do you sort of break it down? What are the pieces of the puzzle that you're using? So it'd be good to understand a little bit more about that. So let's start with you, Julia, from the advertiser side.
I think when analyzing a pricing package, I see like the price itself, but the value. So there are a lot of elements that doesn't necessarily cost more for the creator in terms of time and effort, but adds a lot of value to the brand, specifically user rights, right? So are the creators including running as paid ads or boosting or any other like white label opportunities there? Time frame, I do sometimes give preference for creators that can deliver the content earlier. And I think that those are the most like crucial things that I take in consideration.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's fairly popular amongst those aspects. Adrian, from your standpoint, now being the content creator, what things are you taking into account?
Well, the main thing, I guess, is the deliverable itself. For me, it takes a long time to make a video. There's a lot of editing, color, correction, music composition, like from the idea to the motion graphics. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's going to change a lot if it's a story or if it's a sponsor post, UGC, whether I'm doing a live stream. All of those things are going to be kind of the baseline. And it needs to make sense in that regard. Then we have all the marketing values that Julie mentioned, So your engagement rate and all of your your channels, like the distribution, all that sort of stuff, and then all the add-ons like ad usage rights and boosting, repost rights, all these sort of things. And when it comes to negotiating these things, I'm thinking about how can I negotiate based on the product and not based on the price. So I'm not looking to undersell myself, but also I want to have different options in case they push back. So that would be the main thing for me.
Of course, no, definitely. I think that's quite interesting. The two of you mentioned sort of, looking at common themes here, the rights for user-generated content. So let's extrapolate on that a little bit more. So starting with you, Adrian, how are you typically going out about that? Like, are you baking it in your normal pricing? How do you sort of perceive the value? Because naturally, Julia spoke about the pricing and the value as in its other context. What sort of value are you placing it? How are you pricing it? It'd be good to understand that.
On usage rights specifically?
Correct. Yeah.
So for me, it's always baked into the price. The reason for this is that when I see something in my own experience and, I see the price and then I realize that I need to pay for delivery fee and then there's an admin fee and then there's VAT. It's just not the best experience. So I'd rather, give as much value as possible to the brand and then it's all baked in. And I find that most people rather pay the higher price with everything that they need instead of just having to break things into little pieces. The other side for me is also the fact that I can not only rely on how my post performs, so hopefully it will do great, but if it doesn't or it doesn't perform as we both expected, there are other assets that are going to be valuable to you. So you make sure that you're not, that is not as risky of an investment.
Sure. No, that makes complete sense. And Julia, I saw you taking some notes there on the topic. So yes, from an advertiser standpoint, usage rights, naturally, there are companies that use content for weeks, months, years, naturally some that don't. It'd be good to understand from your standpoint, sort of, the value attributed to it and how are you looking at it from a pricing standpoint?
I think overall in the industry, we discuss usage rights very little and we put everything in one box. Well, actually, you can break it down between boosting, between paid ads. Can we repost? Can we add the brand as a co-author? So there are a lot of options within usage rights that normally maybe just put some smaller creators off, when they're trying to discuss this and it's like, oh, that's too much. As a brand, we definitely prefer receiving a quote like, oh, that's £1,000 for a reel and you get 3 months that you can run as paid ads. You can make it your co-author. We can, of course, tag the brand and all of this. But also I've got some quotes that I quite appreciate where it's like, this is the production cost. And if you want to get me as a UGC, just like I produce the content for you and use on your socials, that's how much it costs because that's my time. And if you want me to post on my socials, I charge £10 for every 1,000 followers. And that's the cost of distribution. It was the first time I got it. And after that, I got from a couple of more. It might be an industry thing. It could change. But I found very interesting as well. And in terms of the rights for ads, I've seen a lot of people, brands asking for 12 months, but in a practical sense, it doesn't really make much sense. We're not going to use the same video for a full year. I don't think that more than 3 months would add much value for a company.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that point there. I think it's always in a cyclical phase, right? That it goes in that sense of whatever content's out there, what's doing well. Topics change, right? On social media, I'm pretty sure everyone here that is on social media likes to look at new content, engaging content.
And even seasonality. You don't want to run a paid ad in December where the guy's using like a tank top. So it doesn't make sense.
Well, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, that would do well. But I completely get your point. Moving on to sort of negotiation as a whole, naturally, you've discussed and mentioned a few points that form a part of getting to that price that's going to be right for both the parties. Which aspects are flexible, right? And I'd like to start with you, Julia, this time around to understand from a brand standpoint or the agency representing a brand standpoint, what sort of aspects, when you're looking to price, where can you pull on the strings? Where can you give more leeway? It'd be good to understand that.
I do think, I would say usage rights, again, they're not crucial, but they are very good. It's a nice to have. And definitely as a creator is something that could put you like in front of other creators as an additional benefit that you're offering to the brand without costing you more. I'd say this, depending on the product or the industry, the timeline, I've signed some creators for like a campaign that will happen next semester, next quarter. But if I could see at least the first draft as soon as possible, the best. So if they say like, oh, the video has to go live in September, but I can send you the draft in August, it will put me off.
Makes sense. 100% on the timeline side of things. And Adrian, you being the content producer, you are spending a lot of time on this. But again, when it comes to those pricing and negotiations, and as you've mentioned before, how would you sort of look at a proposal when a brand reaches out to you and think, okay, if you do A, B, or C, I might be more lenient on pricing there? Or what are the aspects on the other side of it, right? Things that you're not budging on at all and what you're not negotiating.
Oh, right. Well, when it comes to the content itself or like how it's shared, I'm pretty flexible. I guess there are some specific things like on Instagram, you have the call out post feature. If they have pretty low engagement and they're going to be the author of the post, that's probably going to be a no for me. If we share like if our audiences share common interests and the posts are very similar, and I'm the author of the post, then that's going to work for me. So it really depends. And in terms of distribution, I wouldn't break it down just like as we were talking before into I will do a TikTok video and this is this much for Instagram video and this is much for YouTube Shorts. I will usually put it all together because you can never know where a video is going to do best. So it doesn't really make sense for you or for the brand to just limit it yourself for one platform. So just account for the value of all your channels, in my opinion. And that way, it's going to work better for both of you. And then in terms of timelines, I usually don't have that problem just because the brands that I work with are understanding of how long it takes for me to create my videos. So in that sense, I never had to resort to rush fees or stuff like that.
That's awesome. Great to hear. It's also good to see sort of the similarity in regards to the components that you're both looking at from, either side of the coin, which is great. Now, sort of moving on to another topic when it comes to these negotiations, exclusivity sometimes makes it, either a make or break for some, creators, brands. I think that's something to sort of deep dive upon from a pricing standpoint. So starting with you, Adrian. How do you look at, let's say, if a brand's reaching out to you and telling you, let's be exclusive, and you have to give me those exclusivity rights in that sense? Is it good? Is it bad? Because I think definitely interesting to see either if it's good or bad, how it's priced in.
Yeah, fair point. For me, it's probably a no. In most instances, I'm not going to accept exclusivity just because most of my content is based around innovation. And I need to be testing a lot of tech, be testing a lot of products for the specific features. So I'm not advocating for one brand for the entire year or stuff like that. So getting exclusivity just would be against the philosophy of my channel, of my content and what I stand for. So for me, it's not going to make sense. There is maybe one or two exceptions where if it's something specific, like a specific competitor for a limited time, then I might be able to discuss that. And if it's a non-compete clause, something like if you really believe in the brand, if you really think they're the best, and they tell you, okay, you can't say that another brand is the best, you're still allowed to work with whoever you want. I think that's pretty reasonable. So those would be the two instances where I think exclusivity might have a place in my case.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I'm pretty sure that there's not that many creators out there that only always talk about one brand. It's about being authentic with your audiences and your community. So yeah, I think it makes complete sense to me. So over to you, Julia, on that. On the exclusivity side of things, I know you're working.
Unpopular opinion.
Let's see.
No, I really think
enlighten us.
It's more. I think it's more for the ego of the brand many times. It's very counterproductive in terms of performance because especially if you're confident that you have a good product, people buy when they can compare things. And if you are removing the comparison side of it, it's much harder for the for the consumer to make a decision. So unless you have a compliance or a tough regulation on you, I think that no exclusivity aside for a month, this is a campaign for a big release. I don't think it makes sense.
Cool. No, 100%. And I've got some interesting questions that's come in on the Slido app. I'm going to refer to one of those. And in the meantime, if there's anything else that you'd want me to ask our panelists, please feel free to post on the Slido. So Mark mentions how common is influencer fraud So sort of buying fake followers and having that fake following in place and fake engagement numbers when you're talking about compensation. So how can brands ensure that they partner with genuine influencers? So I think more geared towards you, Julia, in regards to how you view this when it comes to pricing talks, and what sort of aspects do you look at?
I found out that varies so much depending on the industry you are. So if it's like education, the value, we tend to just use some previous clients in that field, and we have more of a benchmark on like similar clients. So overall, just like trying to compare with different niches, it varies a lot. I've seen fluctuating from $100 to 3,000 for a reel, depending on, oh, this is education, this is finance. So yeah, I think that's the moment it's important to have an agency guiding you because you have a better benchmark. Or if you have like a good connection with other creators in the area that could introduce you to, you have a better sense of how much is really fair to pay.
Sure. And in regards to sort of the authenticity of the audience or fake following or metrics in regards to that, how do you deal with that? Because I think that's what the question really wanted to hone in.
So we do have the technology to see how much it is. I haven't really engaged in many conversations where we had that flag. So I would normally filter those creators in the sourcing process. There were like 2 times that I can recall that they were like inherited partnerships that I had to handle it. And it was a little bit of an open conversation with the creators. Say like, look, we are having the system flagging this to you. Is there anything that comes to your mind and why they're saying it?
I mean, it is quite interesting, right?
It's a delicate topic.
Yeah. And especially like for creators, knowing that there is a lot of technology out there that can easily point out these things. I think to your point, it's, one of those topics that you can easily filter out.
Yeah, I think they know, right? Creators know that we can see this.
See what?
Okay. Fake
Yeah,
followers and all that stuff.
No, I didn't know that. I'm not concerned, but like,
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely
do you
sheds a
store
lot of light. So there's a question that's come specifically for you, Adrian, and they've named you as well, which is quite nice. So from your standpoint, what challenges do you face when collaborating with brands, and is there a way to simplify and improve the process?
what kind of challenges? Well, it depends on. For me, it has to do with the product and the content. So those are the main factors for me. So if the product isn't great, then I'm not going to be able to do a very good job at showcasing it. I'm not going to be excited about it, and probably the video isn't going to be as good. Then, if the brand is only looking, has sourced me because of my engagement for whatever reason, then probably it might work for a video, but I don't think it's going to work long term. They got to be excited about the content that I make, regardless of its performance. They got to be like, I love what you're doing. Let's work together. Of course, numbers also are important, but I find that those two more human aspects are like a much more strong foundation than everything else. Then if we have a good conversation around negotiation and everything else, and the conversation is very open and honest and clear, then that's perfect. It's probably going to be great.
Do you struggle with rounds of revisions?
No, but usually I don't think. I think if they need more than 2, there's something wrong, or we went somewhere wrong like before that. Probably we didn't like agree to the thing in the first place, or we weren't clear enough. I don't think they should need too much. If they're trying to micromanage your content, I don't think that's a great fit. I don't think that's a great idea, because I've had instances where a company at some point like asked me to like do a bunch of edits, put like their logo like at the beginning and the end. Like it was like a whole cacophony of like things, and I was like, listen, this ain't gonna work. So like at some point you gotta realize that this wasn't what you thought it was, and multiple revisions usually is a sign of that.
I have more questions for him.
Please.
And is this something that you negotiate when you get the brief before you sign the contract? Or, I mean, do you say it to the brand up front, or you kind of wait for them to offer and you work in the wiggle room?
About the number of revisions?
Number of revisions, yes.
Yeah, everything should be discussed beforehand.
And you offer?
Yeah, I always offer. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I get from many creators that they don't say anything, and I try to rush together in 2 rounds. They're like, oh no, we do another edit here, we do another edit here, and they do very minor. We send the feedbacks, and they do like out of 5, they do 2, and I was like, that's not everything, and it takes me so many rounds of revision.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you should communicate before you start the revision. You shouldn't just respond with like half of the stuff. You should say, here's what I think. As a creator, you should be, here's what I think would make sense for my audience, and maybe we can find a compromise. And that way you have that conversation instead of doing just extra work and them not being happy with the revision. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what I say is just like, if you don't do all the feedback, it doesn't count as a round of revision, but...
Right, yeah, right. But if the creator disagrees with, half of it, they should say it before sending back to you, just for no reason.
Awesome, I'm loving it. I'm just happy to be a spectator. A question came in for you, Julia. When choosing creators, what are the top 3 things you look for? Is it just budget, pricing, that side of things? Or do you seek out individual types of creators?
I do have a little bit of like candidate concepts, so I know that if this project will work really well with medical students and engineering students, and if they are, I would give preference to this like almost like a persona of creator. Pricing, it does, it has a weight on it, but if I'm very into the creator, I'll definitely try to negotiate if that's not it's not in our bandwidth. But in general, we do have the budget for the entire campaign, not for the creator. So if I really like someone, I would make sure that I trim out from other creators to allocate that. I would say it's engagement rate and how easy it is to communicate with the creator. If it takes me like 3 emails to get a proper quote, I'm already like, no, sorry, not gonna work.
Well, that's very, very interesting to hear. Right? Just going back to the first talk that happened here today, it's like it's all about people, right? You're still working with people on either side. So interesting how all the dots connect there. And I think there was a question sort of based around that as well in regards to what impact do you think AI has on your content process? Now, this was aimed at you, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well, because you're kind of, it's all about people, it's about technology and people, but AI is, very up and coming, gaining a lot of prevalence. So starting with you, Adrian, sort of, has it impacted your content creation process?
No, not really. In my view, like I love collaborating with people. I will never, not commission an artist to do artwork. I won't do those things. There are places for AI when it comes to technical things that normally you would do yourself manually, like processes that might take a really long time and that might make the whole thing more efficient. But when it comes to the creative process and the intention, the human intention, humans should be doing that. So in my view, this is how I would approach it. So it hasn't really affected my content. AI has been for a long time before it was labeled as AI, and a lot of audio editing tools and video tools have been using this type of technology before it was branded, as AI. So
yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. So, Julia, from your standpoint, naturally, from a pricing perspective, it could be, perhaps attractive where you have those options on the other end. But how do you look at it from a, someone that's holding the budget?
Well, I never worked with a creator that used AI to create the content, not at least on camera. I would expect them to use AI to look for better hooks or how to optimize the script. And like, this is something that on the briefing side, we use it like, oh, can you write me, what questions the influencer would have if I just sent this paragraph as part of the brief. So I think it helps more than is a threat. I think that out of all industries, influencers are quite safe in terms of AI is the one that will take the longest. I don't want to say they're not going to replace, but take the longest to replace, because at the end it's about human and connectivity, and it's not something that they can take right now.
No, that's great to hear. And then I'll take one more from this Slido. I'm sorry if I didn't get around to your question on this Slido. Please feel free to flag one of us up later on if you do want some further clarification. But one question I found quite interesting when it came to pricing and negotiation is to you, Adrian. Do you charge differently for ambassadorship deals versus one-off campaigns, and how do you guide that pricing when that comes into the conversation?
Do you mean like longer term versus one-off?
Yeah.
Yes, there will be some difference in price. It won't be huge because still, what we talked about earlier, you need to have your baseline price, so it can't go under that. Like you can like be given massive discounts if you're only covering your production costs. Like there's got to be something reasonable in there. But there's in every freelance in any business actually, when you buy in bulk, you usually get a better deal. But I wouldn't give this out to anyone. Let's just stay that clear. Like, I don't think every creator should be giving away like annual partnerships to everyone. I think you got to think very carefully about who you're partnering with and do a bit of short-term first before you realize whether they're the right fit or not.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know that we're edging close to time here. So just the last question for the two of you. Start with Julia. Just sort of some key takeaways, giveaways for brands in the room, agencies in the room that are, trying to crack this code of, working with influencers in the right way and compensating them fairly.
I think it's when you're evaluating a creator, don't look just at the price, look at the overall value of the package and think about their costs as production and distribution. And I'm saying this because depending on your product, it might be better for you just to run a UGC campaign with that creator instead of just paying for the audience reach. Yeah.
Amazing. I think, that makes a lot of sense. And then Adrian, for the last words here in regards to key takeaways, giveaways. I know that there's some content creators in the room as well. So for them, sort of give your a few words.
Yeah, no pressure. So I guess for me it would be do your homework. So do your research and what your value is, what your production costs are, what you can offer, and of course how you can be the most valuable to the brand. So you can put yourself in the best place. So that way you know when to take a deal and when to walk away from a deal. That's also very important to know what things you will do and what things you won't do. Because that's only going to help you in the long run, even if you're turning away something in the first place.
Awesome. I say thank you very much to both of the panelists, and thank you very much everyone here for listening.